Welcome, everybody, to another Microsoft Unboxed Pod. This is episode 90. We're getting close to the big 100. I am your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by
David Allen. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Hope everybody's hanging in there, having a good. We're filming this on a Friday. Hope you're having a good Friday. Hope you've had a good week. And we'll try to get you some tech news, some goodies to smile, frown. Maybe we can add some smiles to your day, but we'll see what we can do.
it's a light week, so we're going to get you in and out as quickly as possible. We're going to start off talking about. Sorry, let me get my notes up here. We got the global RAM crisis, RAM apocalypse, or memory shortage. I don't know, whatever quick and fun name you guys want to call this new thing, but we're going to get into the details and why we thought
Rich people getting richer?
Well, it's that, but we also thought, when we first started talking about RAM shortages, that was only be a year, maybe two. We might be looking at it, the rest of this decade. So there's that. We also got Meta pulling the plug on yet another of its Metaverse tent poles. So that thing is quickly starting to fall and fade as everyone seeks AI. We got Adobe Firefly adds customizations. We're going to get into the details of that. If you're an Adobe user, you might want to know that you have new tools that you're paying for monthly. See, and you can justify why you're paying that amount. Lastly, we'll talk about Microsoft is saying that Amazon is working with OpenAI to do an end around Microsoft's exclusivity with OpenAI. It's weird. It's a weird thing, but it's also been kind of bubbling in the background. We've been talking about it over the past few weeks about how OpenAI and Microsoft kind of wanted to part ways. It looks like they went to Amazon to try and do some kind of weird semantic phrasing in order to get around some technical difficulties that would allow OpenAI to do a little bit more, even though they're not contractually allowed to. We'll get into those messy details. And then we'll get you off into your weekend with obviously our Xbox free play days and what's going to be going on this weekend. But as we kind of do with every podcast in the last few, we'd like to start off with a rant. And I think my buddy David's got a pretty good one.
Yep, I'm gonna shorten it up for what I told you off air here, but we've got Microsoft, Google, Amazon, etc., OpenAI that we're going to talk about. They're trying to justify AI, and that kind of leads into the RAM crisis because you got to have all the RAM and the video cards and the GPUs to be able to process all of this wonderful AI that they're wanting us to pay for and use and make sure you pay enough to make the investors happy. You kind of get the point. Well, I know I had mentioned it last week that I've been working on a small app, just a hobby app that I'm having a little fun with. I'm learning a lot along the way too. But I got to the point this week of closing my app and at least getting it to a point that I'm going to stop for a while and I'm actually going to go use it and see if I want to change it, add anything to it, if I want to make it public, if I want to just forget about it, whatever I wanted to do. Well, I had hit just what to me was a very small bug in my code, and I could not figure this out. And my code is roughly 5,000 lines, give or take. I knew Copilot, personal Copilot, it was more than it could handle. So I went to Google Gemini and I pay the $20 for the pro subscription because I need the Google storage for email. So I pasted it in there and it gave me a few clues as to what I need, but I had hit the context limit because I could tell it was kind of losing control the more questions I asked. So it suggested that I shift over to something I had never used, Google AI Studio. I've heard it talked about in, the Google conferences and whatnot, but I had never used it. And when I went over there, it made it perfectly clear to me that I had entered the Google Cloud world. Having used Google Cloud before, I'm squeezing my credit card with one hand and I'm clicking with the other hand because it's telling me I'm welcomed. It's not asked me for any cards. I'm like, Okay, so you're just going to pull the credit card that I have on Google and you're going to start charging me for this. I know that's what you're going to do. I drop my code in, ask the question. Google AI Studio pinpoints it, takes care of the issue. I'm good. Where's the charge? It says down there at the bottom, once you get through the process, that Google AI Studio makes their sandboxes free and encourages people to use them to try them out. That once you hit certain limits, it will stop you and tell you you need to go pay for an API key to continue. Makes logical sense, right? You've got a point where you can use it for free. And then if you hit that limit, they stop you and tell you got to pay. Thank you, Google. I appreciate, being able to try out your services. Well, since we're Microsoft centric and I love my Copilot, I'm like, let's slide over to Microsoft and let's drop this same code into their engine, see what happens. If only it were that easy. When you go over to the Microsoft Foundry, and maybe you guys that develop every day can leave me a message and tell me where I messed up or tell me where I could find a alternative. But I went through the consumer way and moved over to Azure and followed Microsoft's defined path to get to their Azure AI engines to be able to do this. Everywhere I went, first thing you hit's a paywall. Everything is divided out. For example, they see it this way. You're going to upload code. Well, we've got to store that. We've got to store that to work on that for you. So here, you need Azure storage. Enter your card here because you need storage to store this code while we work on it. Interesting. So you go in it another way. Well, you still need that storage, David, so make sure you give us that credit card. Once you give us that credit card to store this code, we'll let you continue. So I go in yet another way. I think I have found something the third time because I've gotten to the language models. So it presents me with a language model. I choose a list of language models. I choose the one I'm looking for. And I make sure that I choose the one that appears to be the least expensive. I don't need deep thinking or anything like that. I'm figuring I just need some help with this bug in my code. I already know the fix because Google did that for me. So I get to the point of pasting my code. No, not today, David. We need you to pay for the model. We need you to pay for the storage. Oh, and since you're this many lines, you need access to this model. And if you want us to deep think that and solve it for you, then you need access to this over here. Altogether, it presented me with the services that I would need. I was just under $200. And I'm just trying to ask a question about code. I'm not asking it to code. I'm not even asking it to fix my code. I'm trying to access a model that has a large enough context window to take in my code and answer a question. Now, $20, I get it. $50 probably would still get it. I would understand that Microsoft needs to be paid for these services. But I'm just a hobbyist. My 5,000 lines of code are nothing. I understand that. If I'm a hobbyist and I'm $200 in to be that hobbyist, you're probably not selling a whole lot of AI to small businesses because they're not going to pay these what feel like astronomical prices just to get into your system and try it out. You've already got their $200 in my case. You've already got my $200 before I've done anything. There's no trial. There's no getting in there. Hey, see what this looks like. Play with it, tinker with it, see if this works for you. Google is winning this one. Now, they may change that today. They may change that tomorrow. But Google is winning this one. I was able to get into Google AI Studio. They offered me suggestions. Hey, do you want to download the Google Gemini IDE so we can help you offline on your desktop? Yeah, sure. Let's try that out. I downloaded the IDE. Guess what? I had it right there on my desktop. Gemini was answering questions. As long as I don't hit their quote unquote free tier limit, they keep answering. I got what I needed. It didn't cost me a dime. Now, I'm not looking for free services necessarily. But the fact that Microsoft has put everything behind a paywall just to get you to pay before you even open the door. Think of it this way. It's like looking at a house, your house shop, and you can drive down the road and you can look at all the houses. But if you see something you like and you pull in the driveway, there's a fee to pull in the driveway. There's a fee to walk in the door. But you don't know if you want that house yet or not because you hadn't seen the whole thing. That's exactly what this felt like. And, this was Tuesday night, Wednesday night. I got pretty ticked off. And, we talk about it. We've talked about it here a lot. I understand why people are not buying Copilot. Because if on the business side, everything's behind a paywall and you're nickel and diming, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to that. I think you told a pretty good story. I'm going to try and keep my rant short so we can get on with the
Sorry, I
news.
did go a little long there.
No worries. Mine's is this is for streaming. And because I'm a fan of media, film, television, stuff like that. And we just had the Oscars. I was sitting down talking to my mother-in-law the other day. We had a conversation about additional content. It seems like in the era of streaming, we've lost that. When we used to have to buy DVDs, you got a value proposition that, hey, here are some bonuses for the DVD. Maybe it's extra music, maybe it's director's commentary, maybe it's bloopers, whatever it was. It seems like when you bought a physical copy, the way that some of these studios justified selling you that physical copy, renting shelves to put it on, was that they charged you a little bit more, but they also gave you a little bit more. Now it seems like when you finish a movie or a show on Netflix or NBC or HBO or Disney Plus, that's the end of it. Unless it's a Marvel movie where they bake in an extra credit scene at the very end that's part of the credits and not additional to the movie, you don't get any extra content. And like I said, I could be wrong, but it feels like to me, as soon as streaming took off, we lost all of that. And it's because they were either trying to fit in advertisers or more content to justify getting the advertisers. So again, you go from one end of the movie to credits. They ask you, are you still watching? You click yes, and they move you on to the next movie. I would like to go back to a time where we get additional content. And I had this, and I'm saying this idea now because I want to get credit for it. I'm putting it out there. It's being recorded, whatever this date is. Whoever takes this idea, I'd like
Our
to get a
man
little,
wants credit. He wants his
like to get a little
royalties.
taste. Every streaming network that has a platform that's sustainable. I'm not telling you guys to go out and make anything unsustainable. But if you're like HBO Max or your Netflix or your Amazon, you need to dedicate a channel or part of the app that streams 24-hour additional content. Meaning you get, your favorite shows on there, and you get your directors or your people in the writing room, or you get the bloopers, or you get dedicated to the people who go out and create the sets. If it's like Lord of the Rings, talk about the people who went out and scouted the area, things like that. For HBO, the Icelandic areas that were shot for those scenes at the wall. Just have that as part of the app if you want to charge an additional $5 to have your app. So it's HBO Max plus $5 more to have just that channel, just that app that streams all of that. And again, it's easy content because you have it recorded. You have it somewhere on a thumb drive. You're just not using it to monetize. And I think there are people out there, people who would like to know, how their favorite actor got cast in this role. Even some of the, barring that you get agreements from the actors and actresses, they're casting videos. Like you can see them, auditioning for the role. and you can see where they, why they were chosen for it. Things like that. I think that content out there will make a lot of people a lot of extra money. Because again, imagine if you told, I know not that she needs it, but you told Ariana Grande like, hey, we'll give you an additional, percentage if you allow us to show the footage of you auditioning. If we got to see, the choreography for some of those dances that you guys performed in Wicked, things like that, people would pay an extra $5 or so a month to just see that. And again, it's just constantly streaming in addition to the movies you have. So you can put your shows on there, you put your documentary series, you can put whatever you want in that channel. But it's all of the additional content that we keep getting cut from movies, from shows, from all the other stuff we used to. That's my rant. I don't know. Do you agree with it or not? You think it's a bad idea?
I think it's a good idea because I'm like you. We're both aging gracefully here. I remember the time when you bought a DVD, and sometimes you would pay that extra, as you mentioned, $5 to get the extra stuff, or the stuff they used to call it behind the scenes extra, or something like that. Where it would be on a second DVD, or they would tell you how to access it. When we first started putting content like that on the internet, they would tell you, hey, buy this, and you get this code, and you go click here, and there were some movies like you're mentioning, I would go watch that stuff and I would pay the extra. Some of it was worth it.
I
Uh,
think there's an audience out there. So, we'll unpack that some more as we go on, and maybe there's an idea developer and some studio licenses out there and producers and networks that'll
but
say,
my
hey,
but we want our royalties now. We want
yes,
the
exactly.
royalties.
You get a little taste of that, a little taste. That's all we're asking for. With that being said, let's get into our news. Thank you guys for tolerating our rant. It was a little long this
Yes,
week, but we
thank you.
got you guys. Here's the news. We are going to be talking about Adobe Firefly. That's our first one up. That's a story you pulled. Let the people know why they should be interested in that.
You know, not to talk about AI back to back on you folks. I'm sorry about that, but I saw this late yesterday come across my desk in an RSS feed, and I went, this looks interesting because I recently dropped Adobe and their Creative Cloud membership because the price was approaching $70 after taxes a month. I couldn't quite get there. But when I read this about their new generative AI offerings, it kind of made me scratch my head and made me wonder, what are they doing to make all this happen technology wise? That was an interest to me. And should I go back and give them a month's fee just to try this out? As we know, with generative AI, we have kind of gotten to a point where we expect to enter a prompt and get a result. And we go back if we don't like what's generated, and we refine that in the same prompt. But if you're a business owner, you've got a branding, you've got your own style, you've got your colors, you've got your font, etc. That's where this new Adobe Firefly model comes in. You can go in, according to Adobe, I have not tried it, and you can create your own model that is strictly based upon the way you do business, your colors, your style, your content. And Adobe will store and keep that model and keep your preferences. So you can go in and say, change my logo to this. Change my logo to David likes McDonald's to David hates McDonald's. Your colors, your font, your background should match from generation to generation. And I got to thinking about this. I said, this could be good because one of the biggest things for companies is keeping your branding. If you can go in and create a model that knows your brand, knows your color schemes, knows your style, and you can go in and ask it a question and just get creative assets that match, you got something there. My question is, what happens to your Creative Cloud price? because the assumption is that everybody's going to want this. So everybody's probably going to pay for it. So we're going from $60, $65, $70, $75, $80. This is all great. But what are we willing to pay for custom AI options? It's the first real custom option I've seen. That's what made it, catch my attention, to where you can customize the model. That's how it's worded in their press release. You can customize the model. So, are we ready for customized AI options? And secondly, are our wallets ready for customized AI options? I'm not sure.
That's a good question. I see Adobe Firefly as kind of an interesting subtool, essentially. This is going to be a
Yeah,
tool I
I
think that's
agree.
going to replace Photoshop and Premiere as an all in one solution. Because what it does is it allows people who don't have the expertise, don't know how to utilize the entire menu of options that are in these very professional apps, but they need to do a little bit of light editing and they can know relatively some decent prompts to do it and they can get it done. It's kind of like if you combine the best of Canva and Photoshop and put it all into one thing. I think that's where,
Hmm.
you know, mid-tier businesses, smaller businesses, to your point, someone that makes it important for their branding, and then you can get something done quickly on a relatively low budget, where you don't have to hire in-house or create in-house or hire a third-party marketing firm. This is the tool you're going to go to. And Adobe's creating, they're bolstering it with a ton of AI. Meanwhile, they still offer, the box sets of Premiere and uh, Photoshop and Audition and you know what is it, Acrobat and things like that. But eventually, I think it's all just going to be consolidated in that. Now, that's where we start to ask you, what is the pricing? Or is that one app eventually going to be $89 because it does all of these things that didn't you instead of you having to manually cut and edit video, you just type in like, hey, give me some jump cuts, give me some transitions that do this and do that and whatever, and I just type it all in and then creates that versus me having to manually get my own b-roll, manually cut each second, manually overlay images and all that stuff. Is it worth 80 to $100 a month? That's the question. It's cool to see that they're getting this done, but it's also interesting. You should note that their stock, since they've been putting AI in, hasn't been doing very well. So I don't know if it's the investors just not believing in the product, or if they are getting feedback from users that are saying that maybe all of these features are just too complicated or don't produce the added effect. Maybe it just creates more work than necessary.
What's the common word? The common word is agent. Everybody says, uses AI agent. I'll leave on this comment. I think agent is going to start equaling employee. And I think there's going to be a wall there to get over as to what people will pay and what they want. Because, they're like, well, do I pay this $100 a month or do I let my marketing person do it? My marketing person can do it, and my marketing person can do other things because they're a physical body here. So I think we're going to have to get through that of, where's the line for the agentic agent? Let's use the term. Where's the line for the agentic agent versus the human body that is sitting in my office?
We'll leave that hanging. You guys can help us solve that with, if you have any responses, leave them in the comments below. Moving on to our next topic, we got the global RAM crisis. This is a
Womp
story,
womp.
yeah, I know. This is a story I pulled, brought us down a little bit, but hopefully we'll end on a good note. But I mean, it must be said, and we just want to make sure we got that out to you guys that, hey, you should be prepared for higher priced devices because of this. And like I said, we had written about over the last few weeks that this is kind of coming to a head because of AI. But I want to say Shay Tae Wan, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was speaking with Bloomberg this week, and they were talking about the global memory crunch. And Shay, I believe, works for one of the three big uh, microprocessors that creates RAM, things like that. I think they work for SK Hynix, I believe. And they're talking about how they've shifted their priorities to focus on creating memory for data centers, obviously, and that consumer products like laptops, phones, tablets, your IoT devices, like that, have all become second tier. And in doing so, they're predicting that we could be in a RAM drought until 2030. Manufacturers can't scale fast enough, is what they're saying. Hendricks chairman is saying that the wafer capacity is already at 20% behind demand currently. And even with a $13 billion HBM plant that they just recently got up and going, relief won't happen until possibly late 2027. But like I said, most certainly they're saying that it could persist until 2030. Samsung, which also produces a ton of RAM for the sector, has been hesitant to expand aggressively because they don't think AI has the, I don't know, longevity, even though they're putting it in their phones constantly. It's just software updates for them to actually start churning their production to match that, and then you have all this extra RAM and memory for a sector that falls, or a bubble that bursts. They don't want to be put in that situation, which is kind of a chicken and the egg situation because now, because they're not ramping up production, everyone else is sort of falling behind on the demand. So you could be, it's one of those, perhaps self-fulfilling prophecies. You don't have enough demand or enough product for the demand. Demand eventually falls off, and now that entire sector has fallen off because you didn't produce enough. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And for the products that are coming out that do, have RAM, you have two options. You can either settle for a measly 8 gigabytes, which is what you see. Perhaps you can go back to 4, which would be devastating. But you can go, 8 gigabytes, which we saw in the, Mac, Apple's touting for their MacBook. They found the secret sauce to utilizing 8 gigabytes of memory and making it work. But you're either going to settle for that, or you're going to get the more expensive product that might have 16 to 32. And again, prices are going to go up exponentially. What do you think about this whole 2030 being where we start to get perhaps some relief?
I'm going to call it bullcrap, and here's why. The rich are getting richer the more we squeeze this RAM apocalypse, to use the term that you used. The rich are getting richer. You will never convince me that in the year of 2026, with all the money, the technology that we continue to have more of, that somebody or some group of people, some group of investors, whoever, cannot jump in and say, look, we've got to solve this RAM crisis and solve it quickly. Whether that means coming up with temporary factories that produce the wafers, whether that, means modifying existing structures into factories, or but coming up with better ways to produce wafers. I don't know all the possibilities. I'm not a wealthy man. I don't, you know what can be done. But I think back to COVID. Look how quickly we solved COVID. It came in a couple months later, 3-4 months later, we had a vaccine. Whether you love it or hate it was not, that's not what I'm up for discussion about. We had something. So our brains and our money was able to solve what was causing a pandemic. But we can't solve the RAM crisis, because if we solve the RAM crisis, the same people that would be solving it are the same people that want to see it last just as long as it possibly can, and don't want to do anything about it because their bank accounts tell them otherwise. There's no motivation to solve this problem other than, to your point, see if it naturally solves itself. If AI doesn't take off, then yeah, it solves itself. But what if AI keeps running? What if AI keeps getting bigger? We're looking at 2027 to 2030 already. Does that go to 2025? Where's the catch up point? If AI takes off, where's the catch up point? It's not like AI is going to go away. It's not going to leave. It may become a business product, a commercial product that you pay for, but it's not going to leave. So I'm not actually, I get we're in the crisis, but the path out is not what I buy. There is a way to start getting out today. Doesn't mean we get out today, but there's a way to get started getting us out today. And I wouldn't dare say have us out a year from now. It's
Well,
a it's a matter of wanting to do it versus what's going in your bank account.
I am with you halfway. I
Okay.
think, I think just like with everything when it comes to inflation, there are people who are, salivating at the idea of being able to charge us more for less. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. I do think that there is a fear, though, that you suppress consumer appetite for the next product. So again,
I
if
agree with
someone's going
that.
out and buying say they go out and buy this $500 Mac, that 8 GB, and they realize that, the next year's model doesn't do, it's just as expensive, offers just relatively the same for no added value, people start to hang on to that. And now instead of having
Mhm.
that person jump to the next product for another 500, 600, $800, they're now sticking with this $500 device for 5 to 6 years. You've now hurt yourself on that because you're going to have a whole group of people that are saying 8 GB is going to have to be enough. It may not even actually be enough. Maybe my computer stutters, but and it doesn't work well. But I can't afford to go up to 16 GB. I can't afford to do 32. Eight's going to have to be it. And now I've changed my entire behavior. I use less. I don't use Chrome. Maybe I use a different app. I start to change that. And that's stuff you don't control anymore. So now you run the risk of not being able to sell to me anymore. I move on to something else. I think that what ended up happening was, to Samsung's point, I think a lot of people were hesitant about AI early on, not knowing that it was going to need this much RAM. So they didn't produce it. And they didn't think it was going to take off the way that it did. Now that it is taking off, at least in some sectors, they are trying to keep up capacity because you need all these data centers in order to feed this monster. Before you could even start to think about, hey, let's go back to what was working. So there's part of everyone poo-pooed AI, and I still am very hesitant on it, very cynical about it. I think it's still a bubble. But now there are people trying to deliver for it because there's money in that bubble. And they're seeking that bubble because it's growing faster and the money is much higher. So they're, like Nvidia is now, they're no, they were the gaming company. They were putting them in towers. Now they're saying, screw you guys. You guys can wait for our pitiful chips while we go to the data centers, to the companies that are going to pay us hundreds of thousands of dollars for
Uh-oh.
these chips versus your petty, $2,000 to $3,000. You guys can go off somewhere with that and wait. So I think there's a priority shift because the money's a lot of money right now, and everyone wants to gobble that up, and we are not suffering for it. I do think we're going to have to wait a while, and I think honestly, it's for the best. I think as consumers, it's better for us to appreciate the things that we currently have. Imagine, everyone's going out buying the new iPhone. I don't think we really comprehend how impressive a technology that is because we're always just moving to the next thing. You have a computer in your pocket. You have a DSL level ish camera. Video recording is a big thing. I mean, imagine all those protests we had for ICE. Without these people being able to have those mini computers in their hands, there would have been a lot more injustices going on. Like, we just need to appreciate, and you do that when you don't have to buy the new thing. When you're just using the product that you have, you appreciate it a little bit more as opposed to waiting for the next thing to make it better for you. Hopefully, we had a mind shift on that.
I'm going to agree with you, and I'll keep this 15 seconds. I, you know, I have mentioned earlier about working on the coding project, and I find myself experimenting with local AI, and I find myself enjoying it. But I find myself noticing the very truth that VRAM is needed, RAM is needed, CPU is needed for these local models to run efficiently. And even I have started looking at, well, what does it cost me if I'm going to keep tinkering with these things, what does it cost me to run these darn things? And I go and I look at that 32 gigs of RAM is X, and then 64 gigs of RAM is quadruple X. Okay, what I've got sitting on the desk is fine. And I stop looking. So there, to your point, there's an appreciation to what you have, and the fact that I might have to wait a little longer for that query to answer, but it answers. So that's good.
Definitely. Talking about appreciating things, those of you who used to play in the Meta Horizon, you might want to start appreciating it a little sooner because it's going away, unfortunately.
The
This is
word
one you picked.
meta, we kind of had to go from Facebook to Meta. We kind of made that transition because you know what, buddy? Meta was going to be the next thing that we were going to have, and we were going to be these AI looking people, avatars. That's the word I'm looking for. We're going to be,
Yeah,
you
legless
know,
avatars.
we were going to be these faceless avatars, and we were going to be going to meetings in our VR headsets as avatars. Well, guess what? Not happening anymore. Meta's decision to drop Horizon Worlds, it's a final decision, and it will be leaving headsets on June 15th of this year, and the app has already been pulled from the Quest store at the end of March. So if you don't have the app, you're curious about what it is, you're a little late, you're not going to be going in that direction. The pivot from VR, as we've talked about, it's not been so subtle. We're kind of moving to the AR glasses. I gave X-Real a look this week because I'm a VR racer once in a while, and I'm going to, I want to keep doing VR? Do I want to go, try something else? Or do I want to go back to one screen? I want to go back to multiple screens. But we're not saying VR is on its way out the door. It's just the Meta Horizon app that is on the way out the door for now. So it's going to be, what remains is a mobile app that functions kind of like Roadblocks for you Roadblocks players out there. My nieces, my nephews play Roadblocks. I do not. So you guys will have to help me understand exactly what that's like. It's a pragmatic move, but also a symbolic one. The metaverse was supposed to redefine how we work, socialize, and exist online. Okay, I'm going to be an avatar. I'm not going to be human anymore. Got it. So instead, it has been quietly folded into a corner of the app ecosystem while Meta pours its resources into, guess what? AI and AI infrastructure and more grounded hardware that feels, in hindsight, the company's all in metaverse gamble was, guess what? A womp, womp, womp. Didn't work out too well. I never used the metaverse beyond reporting it. I do have a Meta VR headset. I saw it all over the headset, trying to get me to jump into the metaverse, check it out. Nope. Plugged it into my PC, launched my racing simulator, clicked go on the controller, and away I went. I have never even opened a MetaQuest app to do anything. So for me, never knew what the metaverse was, never knew what the meta universe was. Makes no difference to me whether it's going or not. I got a feeling a lot of other people feel the same way.
Yeah, it was I mean, to your point, Facebook went in all in a new branding. It's going to be weird that we're not calling
I
something
remember
Meta.
when we reported on the name change.
Yeah, and now the metaverse has lost one of its biggest, showcase apps slash experiences in this folding. It was about an $80 billion investment. Facebook has kind of went in on this whole meta thing. I don't know if they're going to come back to it at some point or pivot it somehow and coalesce AI and meta together to justify whatever that was. Otherwise, it
Could
feels like,
be.
again, it was just a little jaunt that Zuckerberg had, and he had the money to burn, so he burned 80 billion with a B on this effort. Most of the developers have been either fired or moved over to AI stuff. The games have been getting fewer and fewer support, and fewer games are showing up, fewer experiences, fewer people are tying into it. I remember Microsoft was trying to ride the coattails of this with their whole team's experience in the metaverse, and you don't hear anything about that development. So, and again, AI seems to be the big thing that everybody's in. Again, Meta was just kind of Facebook's and Microsoft and a few business things going in. AI seems to be where everyone's at. So I can see being, to your point, a pragmatic move. Let's go where everyone else is at. Just, I think we have to start realizing that sometimes these tech CEOs don't know everything. The next story we got is Microsoft trying to fight or potentially threatening to sue OpenAI and Amazon. I think it's going to be particularly Amazon, or I think OpenAI because they're the one with the contract. But they are basically using their newfound partnership with Amazon to kind of skirt around Microsoft's exclusivity. That's the thing. For those of you who've been following the channel, following the news in general, you know that Microsoft and OpenAI are, kind of bosom buddies in a certain regard. And OpenAI was just a research firm where Microsoft invested, I think, initially $10 billion. Eventually, the number got up to close to I think 30 or something like that when all is said and done over the next 10 to 11 years. And they did it because they wanted exclusivity to OpenAI models, which we know them more colloquially as ChatGPT. Copilot is built around it. It's a wrapper on top of it. But Amazon's new $50 billion investment in OpenAI is part of its plan to host this new frontier platform for AWS, which obviously directly challenges Microsoft's contractual claim that OpenAI models must run through Azure. To your point, Microsoft's even gatekeeping its partner, OpenAI, saying, hey, you got to run everything through us because that's how we make our money. The Amazon OpenAI deal it was enormous. Like I said, AWS committed about $50 billion with a B, to be the exclusive third-party cloud distributor for OpenAI's Frontier Agent platform, which included 2 gigawatts of Trainium, I believe is what it's called, compute and deep integration with Amazon's Bedrock platform. Microsoft obviously thinks, hey, what happened to us, buddy? We were your partner for cloud services and storage and distribution and training models. Microsoft signed this partnership with, I think, OpenAI in 2019. And it's held rights requiring all stateless API calls to OpenAI models to run on Azure. This clause survived every renegotiation that Microsoft's had. We've documented that they've had a couple over the past few months that have kind of made their partnership a little more elastic. They can kind of venture off in different ways. Microsoft can play around with Claude, as a model, or XAI if it chose to. And now OpenAI is being allowed to play around with AWS as a cloud provider, not just Azure. But Microsoft's always said, you can go see other people. You got to come home to me still. And it seems like OpenAI has found a new person, and they're skipping. They're not coming home every night anymore. And Microsoft doesn't like that.
It's an open relationship, but you can't cheat on your girlfriend.
Pretty much. And so Microsoft, and again, it's really super technical. I can't pretend to know all the details about it, but there's an engineering workaround. They created a co-created stateful runtime environment (SRE) that maintains memory access across interactions. Their argument is because the system is stateful, it falls outside of Microsoft's stateless API exclusivity. Like I said, it's semantic plus an engineering workaround. Microsoft calls it the legal gymnastics. Redmond argues that no stateful systems can operate without underlying stateless calls, meaning AWS would inevitably touch workloads Azure is contractually entitled to, no matter what they say. Microsoft has signaled that it's prepared to sue, but has not done it just yet. I know that Amazon would love to jump into the courtroom with Microsoft. They've been doing it for a while over the past few years. But I think it's going to be up to OpenAI to be like, hey, let's have calmer heads and see if we can figure out this workaround. Because again, the broader implications of this is that if the AI cloud stack is fragmented, stateful versus stateless architectures are becoming more competitive weapons and not just technical distinctions. And the regulatory scrutiny, if these two start to go to court, will then bring out discovery. And if you're Microsoft or OpenAI, you may not want that, depending on how quickly you're moving with AI. So what are your thoughts on this Thrupple.
You know, I'm going to simplify this a little bit because to me, this feels like a lot of common sense. Okay, you're in a relationship with Microsoft. So, I'm a male. So if you're in a relationship with your girlfriend or your wife or whatever it is, you've got that relationship there. Maybe Microsoft's the husband, OpenAI's the wife, OpenAI's the husband, Microsoft's the wife, makes no difference. But you're in that committed relationship. And you go over here and you say, well, I'm going to sell myself, which sounds kind of weird. I get it. But, here's $50 billion. Yeah, we're going to take this money. We're going to be in a relationship with you. Well, Microsoft is like, yeah, you're in that second relationship, but we paid for your house, we paid for your cars, so we're going to go to court and do it the divorce way, and we want our 50%. Could end up being a lot more than 50% if it goes to court, but that's the idea. We want our 50%. So I just question how OpenAI thought this was going to work and they were going to get $50 billion and Microsoft not notice it.
Well, I mean, to their point, remember, this is a technical stateless versus state
Yeah, that's
API
it.
call. So they're like, hey, this is like Microsoft saying, hey, you're allowed to go see other people. You're even allowed to mess around with them if you want, but no kissing. And OpenAI said, "Hey, a kiss on the cheek isn't the same as a kiss on the lips. That is the
Yeah,
level of technicality that we're getting."
I just we've talked about it over the last year or so. I think this may be the break. To have a serious moment here for just a second. I think this may be the breaking point of the OpenAI Microsoft relationship. Now, I don't think it's going to break up tomorrow. I don't think it's going to break up in 2026. But I think it's a start of a long road of divorce because we know OpenAI has needed cash, 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 and more cash because they've yet to come up with a product that actually sells and recuperates all this cash and investment. So if I'm Sam Altman, 50 billion bank account, please, financial officer, 50 billion bank account, please, financial officer. Let's go get that 50 billion. We'll work it out with Microsoft later. Well, you're going to work it out with Microsoft later one way or the other.
That's unfortunate, but you're right. Well, let's wrap up on a happier note. We like to do this every week. We got games for you. What are the games you got?
Yes, we got a few cool games this week. Let me get down to my cool list here where I had these wrote out for you folks. Xbox has loaded up free play days this week, in my opinion. Action packed weekend for free play days, giving you plenty of reasons to change your schedule if you're not watching the NCAA basketball tournament like a lot of people. From today until March 22nd, you've got a few cool games here. Let's see. We've got World War II battles in some of these. What was the name of that game? Ready? Nope,
Hell
nope,
Let
nope.
Loose.
Yep, Hell Let Loose. I get that confused with Ready or Not. I'm a Ready or Not player. I'm not a Hell Let Loose player, so I will have to check out Hell Let Loose. But that's $49.99 this week. That one, for some reason, does not get a discount. If you're looking for something a little more fun, a little more laid back, this total, I had to read this twice, totally reliable delivery service. You can strap into a ragdoll powered delivery mayhem type game. You can team up with your friends. You can do it solo, use fun gadgets to attempt to deliver packages with precision. This one is chaotic, but it's also heavily discounted, all the way down to just $2.99. So maybe everybody can afford to check this one out. We got another one here called Trail Makers. Looked interesting also. You can build and customize your own vehicles from off-road rigs to flying machinery. Or you can collaborate with your friends to Push your engineering skills to the limit. Building's not your thing. We get it. Don't want to build something. Sea of Thieves, the 2025 edition, is out. You can check that out. That is the anniversary edition of Sea of Thieves. Trailmakers is $23.99 and Sea of Thieves is $19.99. We got one more. We've got Firefighting Simulator. Boy, these simulators have been hot lately. Firefighter Simulator Ignite. Step into the boots of a U.S. firefighter and tackle dangerous blazes with friends and get this, AI crew members. So maybe those AI crew members can save your life. So you've got firefighting this week, you've got Hell Let Loose this week, you've got Trailmakers, you've got the delivery game. Got a nice variety this week, and if I had to pick one, I think I'm gonna have to go try the delivery game. I don't see what that's like. I need to laugh this weekend. It's been a hard week. I need to laugh this weekend. I think I'll go try out Trailmakers, and I will probably come down here and just see what it looks like to firefight a game on a console and see how you fight fires on a console without having to actually burn something down, and just see if my AI operated fireman will save my life or let me burn, choke, or whatever it is that you do in this firefighting game. But my friend, do any of these interest you, or are you doing something else this weekend? None of the above? Are you committing crimes? What are you doing this weekend?
I am going to try some of these actually. I want to try Totally Reliable Delivery Service.
Yep,
That
I
looks
do
like it's
too.
going to be fun and chaotic. I need to pick up Sea of Thieves again. I played heavily when it first came out. I haven't played as much in the last year and a half, but I do have a character that I could, I don't know, get back into. And it looks like they've been adding a ton of new stuff, so I'd be interested in that as well. But you know me, I'm going to be probably on the Switch again because it's easy to pick up and more compatible. And I still haven't been able to beat Hades, so still playing that game, loving it. Other than that, I'll probably obviously be hanging out with my family, my girls, for the weekend, doing some cleaning around the house, spring cleaning. But other than that, those are the two games I think I'm going to try. If people want to hang out with you and play games with you this weekend, where can they find you?
On Blue Sky and David PAJ on Twitch. I will probably be on at least Twitch for a little while this weekend, and I'll pick up Blue Sky as well and just see what the gamers over there are up to. But I will probably do some Twitch streaming, may do some of that tonight because unfortunately, you guys can get some laughter on your way out the door. I am a diehard UNC Tar Heels fan, and we blew a 19-point lead yesterday in the NCAA tournament, and we went home. So my tournament watching may be coming to an end, or at least slowing down. So game time it is. Find me on Twitch. Find me on Blue Sky. Help me wipe my sorrows and make fun of me if you're not a Tar Heel fan. I understand, and have a little fun.
You can find me at Happy Hulk on Blue Sky, where I talk politics and comics, or you can find me at Kareem Anderson, where I talk comics and movies. Um, Other than that, don't look for me. Go out and enjoy yourselves. Go grab something nice to eat, listen to some good music, go to a show if you like, whether it be a concert or play or an exhibit. Or try something new. Try a new food, try a new flavor, try a new drink, try a new piece of entertainment. Whatever it is, enjoy it. And we'll see you guys again next week. We want to thank you for hanging out with us and stay safe out there.
Stay safe, folks. Thanks. Have a good weekend.